Lesson 86. These ideas are for review today. 1. Only God's plan for salvation will work. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. I have seen it in many people and in many things, but when I reached for it, it was not there. I was mistaken about where it is. I was mistaken about what it is. I will undertake no more idle seeking. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and I will rejoice because His plan can never fail. These are some suggested forms for applying this idea specifically. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. Let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. 2. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work, yet only His plan will work. By holding grievances, I am therefore excluding my only hope of salvation from my awareness. I would no longer defeat my own best interests in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. Specific applications for this idea might be in these forms. I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I will not see the grounds for my salvation. This calls for salvation, not attack. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Here in the world, it's as if we have a split mind and there's all these choices we can perceive in various ways. One plan for our salvation is the ego's plan. One plan for our salvation is God's plan, but only one of them is actually real. The ego's plan for salvation focuses on enshrouding in darkness. God's plan for salvation focuses on releasing the light. One cannot exist with the other, the light and the darkness. When you turn on the light, the darkness disappears. So which one do you think is real? Darkness and light cannot coexist. One cancels out the other. Which one? The true one, the real one. When you turn on the light, the darkness disappears because it's nothing. It was never real anyway. That is why we always say we bring the darkness to the light, because the light is real, the light is truth. It is a touchstone for truth. It is that North Star. It is what you compare, judge everything against. That is why you must bring the darkness to the light, not the other way around. The ego's plan for salvation focuses on holding grievances. That is the darkness. Those are the barriers in front of the flow of perfect love, to the awareness of love's presence within you, to the releasing of the light. One plan blocks the other. The ego's plan seemingly blocks God's plan. The attack seemingly blocks God's plan, but it can't block God's plan. God's plan is like the sun shining, and the ego's plan, those grievances, are just shadows, clouds in front of it. It's always there, but it can be deflected. There can be some time, a learning curve, before you remember who you are, before you get on track with God's plan for salvation, before you've had enough of the ego's seek but do not find salvation by holding grievances, and you're tired of the discomfort and the upset and the depression and the guilt and judgment and anger and all of the lovelessness, then we ask to see things a different way. And that is how the light is released. God's plan for salvation is the atonement. It is the undoing of our errors. It is the correction of our perception where we have been traveling down the wrong path. It is that, oh, this is the right way. It is that touchstone of truth where the darkness is brought to, it is purified, and the light is released. The correction of our perception, the healing of our minds. It is the realignment with the truth of who we are as God created us, as love created us. It is remembrance that our salvation comes from inside of us, seek and do find it within us. There is light understanding, the God within, the Holy Spirit within, that will help us to see things in divine right order. And therefore, the light can then come into us and through us out into the world. And we can help light up the path of salvation, God's plan for salvation for others.